Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creativity-Hive's weekly program. My name is Miriam Haugen, and I'm part of the Creativity-Hive team. We help creatives learn to make impactful storytelling videos through one-on-one teaching, live group coaching, and our weekly Hangout brings you people working in all forms of motion media and related industry, from broadcasting, video, you name it, from across the globe. Be sure to leave a comment. Let us know where you are joining us from. I am really happy. I'm going to bring on this week's guest is Eric Addison of 100 ACRE Films. Hello, Eric.
Hi.
So I always like to know, you are a videographer, filmmaker. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and then I'm going to want to hear about the whole story of how you got to where you're at today.
Okay. So depending upon the day, sometimes I'm shooting video, sometimes I'm editing video, sometimes I'm just producing video. I kind of do it all. So I started 100 Acre Films back in the early 2000s. The story, the quick story that I always tell people, which is a true story. I got out of film school and decided that I wanted to make movies, and went to Hollywood and met a guy at a party at the Universal lot, right in front of the Back to the Future clock tower set, which was still up at the time. And the guy asked me, he was a producer up in Hollywood. I have no idea what his name was, what he'd done. We were just chatting, and I kind of told him that I didn't want to move to LA, but I wanted to do video and film. And he basically gave me some advice. He said, look, he goes, you want my advice? Go back to San Diego, start a video production company, and build up a business, and get married, have kids, get a wife, get a house, get all that stuff. And when you're kind of stable, go chase Hollywood. And if you make it, great. You've got a career, and you've got Hollywood, you're seeing your dreams come true. He goes, if you don't make it in Hollywood, you've still got a business, and you're doing what you love, and you spent your whole life shooting, editing, and putting together videos. And so yeah, I kind of started the company. I got laid off from a job back in the early 2000s, decided to do my own thing, figured that was the time. And so started the company and do mostly corporate work. Here in San Diego, corporate work is kind of what 99% of us do to survive. Occasionally do some commercials. I don't ever do weddings or anything like that. So, but yeah, work with big companies here in town and abroad, creating internal videos, external videos, marketing, whatever they need, basically. We do for them. And depending upon the day, I'll be shooting, editing, producing, like I said.
Right. So what is your what's your favorite part of your work? I mean, do you like the shooting, the editing, the business part? What do you like?
Well, I will be real clear that I hate the business part. That
Okay.
is the thing that I hate the most with a passion. I remember when I was in film school, I went to film school here in San Diego at San Diego State University. They have a really good business program there. And my uncle told me one time, he goes, hey, are you taking some business classes while you're there? Because they have a really good business school. And I said, business? I'm going to be Steven Spielberg. What do I need business classes for? I don't pay people to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that was the best piece of advice that I never took. And, because I have learned the hard way on all the business. I've made so many mistakes business-wise. So yeah, I hate the business part. The thing that I love the most is the creative side of it. The creative along with the technology side of it. I love playing with gadgets. I love, getting new tech and trying things out. So that's, in this business, there's always something new to play with, and that's cool. But the creative side of it, helping people, tell their stories and get their message across. I'll never forget the first job I ever did for somebody, like working on my own. I landed this gig with the producer, and it was I don't know why he asked me and hired me to edit. I mean, I PA'd for him for 2 days. I think I mentioned to him that I can edit, and I have an edit system at my apartment because I was single and living in a little place down by the beach at the time. And he offered me to edit this video, which was a really heartfelt video to raise money for this school for disadvantaged and troubled kids. And I'll never forget, at the end of the first, I showed him the first cut that I put together. And I remember I showed it to him, and I turned around and looked back, and he was in tears.
Oh my.
Hit him that emotion. I remember thinking, like,
You nailed it.
I'm like, this is cool, you know? So yeah, so that's the side of it that I like the most. When you know, not every project is going to have that emotional impact, but you know, I tend to try to think of it, you know, in the terms that every project is important to somebody. You know, even if it's just a safety video for some company, you know, for their factory floor, you know, you may be saying something in that video that's going to save somebody's life, you know, and so you have to kind of think of it that it's not glamorous. You know, I'm not telling huge stories and with big budgets, but you know, I'm in some small level, I'm helping somebody. And so, you know, that aspect of it, I really like.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so one of your pieces of advice to people starting out or changing careers might be take business classes.
Yes, I would encourage anybody that wants to get into this business to have, you know, to take some business classes, because it will help you down the road. You know, I don't know. It's a people ask me that question all the time about what advice I would give, and you know, I think there's two parts to that question. It's like, okay, first off, are you creative and driven enough to do this? Because you're going to face a lot of negativity. I mean, listen, I sent a cut off of a video this morning, you know, to a client, and I got feedback rather quickly, and there's a lot of changes to it. And, you know, and some of the changes you're like, you know, what are you thinking? You know, that's, you know, what I did was really good. And you have to really be able to process that and deal with that and be open to like, okay, no, you know, a producer that I work for had a saying one time that, you know, beauty is in the eye of the checkbook holder. And I keep that in the back of my head that, you know, people ask for changes, and it's like, okay, it's not what I would do, but you know, I can put my ego and that aside and say, okay, this is what they want, so I'm going to give it to them, and I'm going to make it look as good as I can. So, you know, if you're able to deal with that being able to have people push back on your creativity, then I think that's a good step. And then, you know, the other advice I would give, if you want to work for yourself, which, you know, most of us in this business do to some degree, you know, you've got to be able to have the fortitude to weather the slow times, you know, and know that, you know, you're not always going to be busy, and you can't panic.
Right.
You know, because that's one thing I see with a lot of people is they, you know, things get slow. They go out on their own. They start working for themselves in whatever kind of capacity, gaffer, grip, sound person, camera person, whatever, you know, and they've got all this business, and then they hit that first patch where there's like, you know, a month or two where there's really not a lot coming in, and you've got to learn to save and, you know, and prepare for that and expect that that's going to happen and know that at some point it will come back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So many people don't understand what it is to be self-employed and are not cut out for it, honestly. But but you marshal your resources smartly as you can, and don't panic.
Yeah. And I think one other thing too I would say is that don't be a jerk. The community, you know, I don't care where you live, you know, the industry and the community is smaller than you think. And, you know, if you are a jerk to work with, if you're difficult, you know, that will get around, and you know, you won't be working for very long. People talk, you know, and word of mouth word of mouth is big. And, you know, I don't hire anybody without having either known them, worked with them in some capacity before, or have at least like, you know, one or two people that I'm really, you know, good friends with in my industry, like kind of vouch for them, because, you know, I don't want to be out on set. I mean, sets are stressful enough, you know, when you're out there and, you know, the sun's going down, you got to get that shot, and, you know, nothing's kind of going right. And the last thing in the world that you need is somebody who's just like, you know, just not being cooperative, not working hard. And, you know, so that's probably the best piece of advice I would say is don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. I like that. Number 2, don't be a jerk. Actually, that is, nobody wants to work with somebody who's difficult. So Neil, I'm going to bring Neil onto the stream here and see if he has I'm looking at the back of your head, though.
That's not the one that you're supposed to be looking at.
Well,
Play with my system here.
he has too many gadgets, too many cameras. I have one camera, and it's always looking at me.
Okay, that should be.
Okay.
There we
There
go.
we are.
There we are.
Ta-da.
Okay, ta-da. And I can put that here, and there we are. Fine. Yeah, it's getting all switches. I had the fun situation of my system decided it needed to upgrade today, and the operating system, and so it shut off on me, and then get everything back. And some things were clearly not set up the same way I expected them to be. So it's been a joy.
Yeah.
Mine always does that like right before I need to go home. You know, it's like, and I usually, like, my wife has just called and said, "Hey, can you stop by the store and pick something up? You know, and can you get home by whatever time? Like, you know, quick." Like, yeah, all right, fine. And then I close Windows, and that's when it says, you know, installing updates. You know, and it's like at 1% for 10 minutes, and you're just like, "Oh, come on."
Right.
We both work down here in our studio building that we've been in for many years, and years and years ago, I actually did most of the cooking. It's evolved over years so that Miriam does more of the cooking. And so there's so many times, and she's gone home, and I'll get thinking, okay, dinner's going to be ready in about 10 minutes. And I'm sure that's fine. What the?
Right.
I'm going to be delayed, you know, and it's just like, okay, whatever.
Yep.
You had it. One of the things that I've always wondered about your operation, Eric, 100 Acre Films. Anyone from Disney ever asked you about that?
So, no is the answer. But when I, so when I officially like filed all the paperwork for the name, I got a call because at first, when I first started, I'm in LLC now, but before I was just like a sole prop when I first started off, and so filed the name, fictitious business, all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget. I don't know how they found me, but somebody from the trademark office, like the U.S. trademark office, called me and said, "Hey, we somehow, you know, we came across your company name, and we want to let you know that because of the name, you know, that those things, the property or whatever has lapsed, and it's, if you want to trademark that name for your company, you can, and protect it, you know, because I guess Disney, who kind of has all that stuff wrapped up, has sort of let some stuff go. It's open and available right now, so we really encourage you, you know, if you don't want to ever face a Disney lawyer, to get a trademark." Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, because if you've ever had to file for a trademark, you know it's not cheap, and it's quite a bit of hassle and money. And like a sucker who was just new, again, comes back to the business thing, didn't really know what I was doing. I'm thinking, I remember calling my wife going, "What do I do? You know, I don't want to face Disney." You know, she goes, "File the trademark," you know? So next I called him back and, you know, spent my money and trademarked the name. And so now it's mine, and there's nothing Disney can do really, I guess. But no, to answer your question, they never have. But that happened at the beginning, that sort of spurred, that kind of worried me that they may be calling someday.
Well, I think you're having that trademark may have helped you, because Disney is, of course, noted for being, like Apple, very protective of their intellectual property.
Yes.
But they are, from what I can tell, a little more intelligent than some other companies, because they do have a bit of a reputation for taking a look at it, and if they probably won't win, they let it go. If they think they'll win or they can bamboozle you, then your lawyers will get a letter from their lawyers. But yeah, so I'd always been curious about that. But you do, you know, that whole freelance, you do work for a whole bunch of different clients. One gets all kinds of interesting jobs. What have been some of your more interesting ones to deal with?
Oh, good question. Yeah, that's a good one. It's hard to say just one. Um, you know, doing this job and working. So San Diego is home to a lot of kind of diverse companies. I've one of my clients was the shipbuilders here that build ships for the Navy, and I got to see some pretty amazing things doing that gig. Doing gigs for them. Another one of my clients has been Qualcomm, which produces chips. Basically, if you have a cell phone, I guarantee you, unless it's an iPhone, I think there's probably a Qualcomm chip in there somewhere. And I did work, I still do work with them on occasion, not as much as I used to, but I remember I actually was going through the archives and looking at some old stuff as I was kind of, archiving it off into permanent storage. And some of the videos that I shot for them back in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s and they would have these things called R&D days where you would, they would show the tech that they were working on. And I came across video conferencing, like what we're doing now, and they were pioneering that. It was the little tiny screen, they were talking to a guy in India. It was super choppy, but as I was kind of going through it, I liked it, like, wow, that's, now this is commonplace. But back then, right, getting those previews to getting to see things like that, has been really kind of cool. And then I do a lot of work with biotech companies as well, and learning about, just learning about health and how the body works, and getting access to scientists who are doing cutting edge work, and spending time talking to them and hearing what they're working on and things like that. I don't know, it's hard to pin down like that one thing that has been the most impressive. There's been so many things that have just been like, wow, I can't believe we're getting to shoot this or be here and see this kind of technology or this person or whatever. It isn't glamorous, by the way. There was one time we had to do a film or do a shoot up in Canada, and I had to film it wasn't planned. That came up, and the producer said, "Hey, can you go grab this?" A cow being inseminated. And let me tell you, you really haven't lived until you've had to film a cow being inseminated.
Miriam has experience with that.
I've seen cows being inseminated. I grew up on a dairy farm.
Oh, yeah, that was
pretty gross.
Yeah, that was
the guy with the glove with the comes up onto his shoulder,
up all the way to here.
Yeah.
And the whole time we don't need to go. The whole time he's got his hand up in it. He's like, "Come closer, get a close up of this." I'm like, no. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I got the shot. Don't worry, you're good.
Yeah. That whole thing of growing up around those things, you have a little different appreciation of things than a lot of city folk may have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. Your mention a while back though about having to have a bit of a cushion in your emotional soul for your work, I guess one could say, for criticism from your clients. For most of our career, what I started initially was a portrait studio. And that's what Miriam does now. I'm the one that's gone off into all the video stuff and gets to meet the cool people like you and everybody. And what we dealt with was, trying to do beautiful. And we were always worried about trying to do the really artsy stuff, right? And thankfully, we attracted mostly clients who kind of liked that. But of course, there were times when, no, I want this one over here. And we'd done one that was really bland, boring, and almost didn't want anybody else to see
senior
it.
Boy leaning up against the tree. Okay, yeah. Sure.
Boring. No, I'd rather not be seen, but that's what the client wants. Yes, it's a beautiful image. We're happy to provide that for you. Mm-hmm. And you smile. We had a mentor from Trondheim, Norway, Tor Melhus, who really got into it with chastising a good friend of ours that had a studio in Salem nearby, who was complaining about a lot of his clients not liking his artistic work, and how frustrated he was having to do this quote unquote non-artistic stuff most of the time. It was just sucking his soul out and everything. And Thor looked at him and without any sympathy whatever said, "I do everything I do for love. Some of it is because I love the photographs I produce, and some of it is because I love the money they pay me." And if they criticize what you're doing, you do what gets paid. One of the things I deal with is, of course, is I love troubleshooting. And so naturally, it means that I'm a sucker for going on forums. I'm on Lift Gamma Gain. I'm on the Blackmagic forums, and noted for being on the Adobe forums and helping with troubleshooting. And people get so caught up in like the brands or whatnot, like you're supporting Adobe. I don't really care about supporting Adobe or Blackmagic or anybody. They're huge companies. They've got tons of lawyers and accountants. They can look after themselves. All I care about is it's the clients that we work for get the work we need to get to them, because that's how we all get paid. And so it to me, it ends up being a very practical thing. You use what works. And of course, at that point, you also have to deliver what the client wants.
Right. Yeah, that's the bottom line. Is like I said, you really have to be able to put your ego aside and just put it in check and say, look, I'm not doing this for me. This isn't a personal project that I'm creating because I have some emotional attachment to it. Somebody hired me to do this. And just the same way, if I went to a baker and said, hey, I want a cake and I want it to be chocolate with white frosting, and I wanted to say happy birthday, Eric, on it. And if he hands me one that says happy birthday, Steve, I'm going to be like, what the heck is this? This isn't what I asked for. And I would want him to fix it, and to me, our job is the same thing. People, I think there is something to be said for people do hire us for our artistic ability and our eye, and so you have to sort of, keep that in the back of your head, like, and I think you have to be able to talk to people and kind of guide them through the process of like, well, I think what you're asking for is good, but let me show you something else, or have you thought about this, or maybe if we try this, right. That's that client, being able to work with them and talk to them and communicate with them. That's an art form that, I think a lot of people, getting back to like, what advice do you have? That's another thing. You've got to be able to communicate with people and help them, and guide them, I should say, into what might be better, and kind of stop them from, the picture of the guy against the tree, as opposed to like, hey, what about this? This would be a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit more dynamic. And, what do you think? And listen, if they push back and if they still want the picture of, the basic bland picture, well, okay, I'm going to give it to you because your money is your money.
And it's what's going to make them happy. But
exactly.
They are hiring us for their artistic eye that they don't have, that they know they don't have. They don't have the imagination, and they're hoping sometimes that we will. They're very flattered and happy when we insert some of that art into the work. So
yeah, and Neil, I have to tell you, man, getting a real quick side note, like you talk about being in the forums. I used to go in the forums and try to help out there, and I gave that up a long time ago. You are a man among men to continue that, because it can get ugly in those forums sometimes. And yeah, I mean, people come there asking for help, and sometimes when you try to help them, they can become completely ungrateful. And it's like, it's like, hey man, you came here for help. I'm doing what I can to help you out here. You don't have to be mean or snarky with me. So no, my hat goes off to you for,
thank
for
you.
doing what you do.
We had a guy in the Adobe forums here last week that I finally got, and it was a situation where one of the engineers was actually popped in and was helping and had some very good comments, and the guy was just being a troll. And I finally got a comment from the engineer, just a personal message saying, you're feeding a troll, right? And I pointed out that actually I'm very aware I'm feeding the troll right now, because I was leading that troll along to a point that was going to come up within the next 2 or 3 posts, where he posts something that I could then come back in and go, oh, gee, well, wow, look at this. What do you know? You can do this thing you're saying you can't do. And it was so fun to get there. But hey, I was the kid that back in even clear back to grade school would even bait my teachers if I thought they were doing something stupid, and get them to make a fool of themselves in front of the whole room. And in some of these things, God, I get somebody that's just wants to make a fool of himself at times. I just like, well, if you are really bound and determined, let's just do this uprighteous, shall we? And so I don't get my personal ego. Some of these people, they think they can hurt you or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do I give a crap I have no clue who you are.
Yeah.
I have no idea why I should give a crap about you anymore than I give a crap about Adobe making a dime.
Yeah.
So whatever. And this whole thing of ascribing motives to people and everything, that's just, if you don't know the people, don't try and ascribe motives, because you're probably going to be wrong.
Yeah.
And some of the things where people think that Adobe or Black Magic or Avid, they're doing this because of that. And a lot of times I'll look at it and go, I really doubt any of the people that are making that decision that what you think is what they have to be doing this because of is something that even entered their minds at the time. You're convinced of it, but I don't think they were probably thinking about it. But it's always different to work with people. But then I learned, quite some time ago that I wasn't as good at working with the clients as, say, Miriam. And, that's one of those things that we didn't know why, but I couldn't get loyalty from people. I could do beautiful work for them, but that they were happy with, but they'd also be happy with schlock work from another photographer 4 years later, rather than coming back to us.
Yeah.
And we found out eventually, after we had 2 kids, one who was in college and the other one who was like 5, that were diagnosed at the same time, basically being autistic, and realized that, oh, I'm on the autism spectrum, and therefore I feel a little different to people, and they just don't get that emotional attachment to me. And Miriam is not. People, oh, sweet Miriam. People just think the world of Miriam. She's so nice. And so I had been transferring all of the public part of the business over to Miriam because it worked better when she was doing it. And, that's one of those things that, like now, one of the things I do is help teach on the Mixing Light subscription site. I help teach people that are working with Resolve, if you have to color a project in Premiere, for example, how do you do it? Because I can actually do most of what you can do in Resolve in Premiere. I figured out how to do it, even though some of it's kind of funky and everything, but yeah, you can do it. So, okay, this is how you do it, right? But I realized that what the colorist does is even more than an editor. Colorists quite frequently do have a client-attended session. And these days, sometimes it's over, Zoom link like this while they're working away. But a lot of times they're in the same room. And that ability to work with the client when they at times make some of the dumbest damn comments and requests is really crucial. That is more crucial than your skills behind right here. And that's something I would always be a bit hamstrung with, just simply because I'm me. And so teaching this stuff is something that is more suitable for me than having a client in and trying to do color work.
No, I mean, that's, again, coming back to what we said before, that I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, just like you said, it's that relationship with your clients and developing that. I mean, my wife is always kind of amazed at how well, I am connected to a lot of my clients, and how, it's one of the lessons I learned. I remember freaking out. Like I had a big corporate client, and a couple of people that worked in this department that I did a lot of work for left the company. And I remember panicking, thinking, oh man, well, there it goes. That's like, 40% of my work, because I did so much with them, right out the window. I don't know what's going to happen. What I didn't realize is they remembered me and took me to the new company, and when they went, and so I started working for the old company and working for the company they were at. And then they would tell people there, about me. And so I ended up getting more work. And but a lot of that comes from spending time with them, getting to know them. There is this professional sort of bound or line that you can't cross. But, if you can sort of be in a weird way friends with your clients and get to know them, that just makes it, you keep it professional. You're not calling them to see what they're doing at night, Friday night or whatever, but I send my clients, holiday cards at the end of the year. I know they know my kids' names. I had one group of clients that sent me, when I had my twins a few years back, 5 years ago, sent me gifts and all kinds of stuff, because that we're connected that, well. And, we follow each other on Instagram and keep track of each other's kids and what we're doing and things like that in our lives, but a lot of that comes from just spending a lot of time on set or in the edit bay and getting to know them and talking to them, and developing that relationship. But it is sort of an art form. It not everybody can do that. Like my wife is always amazed because I can be a real introvert, a lot of the times. But for some reason, when I get out there with my clients, it's like, I have no problem in just kind of talking like, hey, how's it going? Get to, how's this? How's your husband? You still doing that thing? Whatever, and that just builds that tie in, so that they remember you and they love working with you. And, so yeah, but it is hard and not everybody can do that.
You're showing that you care too. They are, right. To you, they are a real human being. And it's not just a business relationship.
Yep.
I'm curious about the whole film school. If you were advising somebody who wanted to, start a career, do you think film school is a good way to go?
That's, it's funny. That question comes up all the time. And, I'm a bit biased because I went to film school, but,
which one?
I think it really depends. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to work and if you want to be a grip, well, let me start with this saying this. I think education is valuable. I think if you can educate yourself, if you can go to college and get a degree in something, there is immense value to that. Like the education, I know we're not talking about education systems here, so I'm not going to get into how, expensive college and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole different discussion. But I think the bottom line is if you can educate yourself, if you can find a way to get a degree in something, I think you're a better off, more well-rounded person because of that. But when it comes to the industry, like, if I have friends that I went to school with who are, grips and gaffers up in Hollywood now, and did they necessarily need film school? I don't know that they necessarily did. They probably could have gone up there, started, got to know somebody and just gotten work and then sort of moved up to where they are today. They could have done it without the expense. Now, if you want to write or direct or produce, or be in, one of those kind of capacities, especially writing and directing, I do think that film school is a good thing to do because it forces you to learn to work together as a team. I had to do every position. When I was in school, I directed, I produced, I wrote, I did sound. I learned all those different things, which ultimately helped me now in what I do because, I have to be able to communicate to those people. And sometimes I have to do those roles depending on the job. But to another degree too, I was able to take a lot of classes, art classes, writing classes, literature classes and things like that really taught me about art, and, composition and storytelling, and doing like the creative writing classes that I did. All of that really helped me, find my voice and, kind of help me just be a better storyteller. And because film is such a mix of so many different art forms that having a little bit of all of that knowledge makes you a better filmmaker, I think. So, that coupled with learning how to work together as a team, making connections that you can then call on after you get out of school is a good thing. And then just the education itself, learning about biology and all those kind of things. I think it makes you a more educated person, which makes you a better off person. And listen, the other thing about it too is that you never know where life's going to drop you. I had lots of people that I went to film school with who are not in the industry at all. they work in IT, they work building apps, doing other things and completely different careers. So they did nothing with their degree, but they were able to use the knowledge that they got to find a path that wasn't even film related and find a good job for that. So, having that degree and having that education, I think can pay off later, so yeah, I mean, I think it depends what you want to do, but I kind of feel like film school is definitely a good thing, to do. If you're, but I will say, if you're just going to go to and that's going to a university, if you're just going to go to a specialized film school, there's some out there that's going to cost you $30,000 a year or something like that. At that point, I would say go to a junior college,
Yeah.
take there a lot of junior colleges have film programs that are really, really good. And, take all that money and just go make films, um,
George
that,
Lucas commented one time that I saw where he was saying that what he learned in film school was what you were talking about, how to work with the other people to put together a group to make a film. What he didn't learn in film school was the absolute most crucial factor of the whole damn process, which is how to get a producer to put some money into your film idea.
yeah,
Because he had all kinds of ideas and he got out of school and he went trying to talk to people and they had no interest whatsoever in talking with him about anything because he didn't even know how to present it to them. And at that point, he was going, okay, and realized he needed to run off to talk with some people. So how do I get past this? He hadn't made some connections in film school, having gone to what I think was UCLA, that
USC.
or USC, yeah, where he was able to get to some people to ask, but they were going, now you're ready for the crucial lessons of working in the film business. And he was going, yeah, because I got no money. And they're going, mm-hmm. And you need people with a lot of money to make a film. And he's going, yeah. And so that's the whole thing of how do you get to those connections? I saw one major director who was going, well, if you want to direct, film school can be handy depending upon which film school. The other way he suggested that a number of people had come up is by becoming a camera operator. And if you don't have the money for film school, become a camera operator and keep trying to work up to the bigger productions you can. You're going to be the start out assisting the C cam person, and then eventually you might be the C cam person, and then you assist the B cam, and you move up to the B cam operator, and hopefully somebody eventually hires you for the A cam. And along the way, you study how the directors are working and learn how to relate with the directors. And he said, because there have been a number of directors that have come up from that route, but it's been mostly either film schools or, they came up through being a camera operator. But I thought being a director is a really interesting and different position if you are, really trying to work in the film industry. It's much easier to go after one of the solid positions like being an editor or a camera person or something like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's true. I mean, because it's easier. I mean, that was one thing I found. When I got laid off from my job and decided to go out on my own, editing was the easiest sort of gig that I could get. I knew how to edit because I'd done that in school. I had a friend that was able to build a computer for me that was able to handle it. And I could do it from my house. I didn't have the money at that time to buy a big camera or a really nice one, but I could edit, and so yeah, that was my entry, in getting in. Cause the cost had sort of, I mean, I don't know how long you've been using Premiere, probably as long as I have, but when Premiere 6 came out, or so 6.5, that had the DV capability, where you could, that was just like a game changer. Cause okay, now all I need is a FireWire card, and I'm ready to go. And that was around the time that I kind of started working on my own. And so, yeah, but you're right. The directing, I think, is the hardest path to go on, partly because everybody wants to do it. Everybody thinks they can do it, but it also is, you've got to have a lot of disciplines to manage, And there's a reason that the people that do it really well do it really well. There's only a few of them.
Yeah.
Because it is.
What do you
it is
spend most
hard
of your time at?
It's a good question. I think I would say editing, probably just because that's the more time consuming of things. I mean, I'll go out and do shoots. We'll shoot 3 or 4, maybe 6 or 7 times a month. But you go to edit and you spend days cutting something up. And so I would say I mostly edit. I am actually I have been shooting a lot more, which actually I love. I love getting out there to shoot. So that's been fun. And even with projects that I don't have to edit, which is kind of like the best. I just shoot it, hand the cards over to somebody, and then Godspeed. Good luck to you. But yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I like being out on set with everybody. I've been doing it here long enough to when I show up on a set, if it's not mine, I'm not producing it. I'm just being hired to shoot. I usually know 3 or 4 people on that set. And so, it's so great to sort of connect with people and hang out with people all day and get to work with them and be creative with them. But yeah, I would say, honestly, I'd probably spend most of my time, upstairs here at the office in the edit loft in front of my computer editing.
Yeah, I know. When I first started doing this, video post thing, me being me, I naturally, Adobe still had speed grade at that point, and which could do the color. And, we didn't know yet that I was autistic. And now I look back and go, I understand editing for me can be painful because of having to make all those finicky little decisions. Because editing is a ton of finicky little decisions. And that is painful for me. Whereas making it pretty, playing with the color, those decisions are fun for my brain. Whereas the cutting and no, how the heck do you choose to put the order? People don't understand until they've done it. And it's kind of a fun thing when you start working with somebody on editing, and then they realize, wait a minute, I've got all this media, and they're trying to put it together and put it on a timeline for the first time. How do you know what order to do? Because you realize that, okay, you go, even if you go and you look at it in your source monitor or whatnot, and you cut everything down into little bits that are, this is good, this is good, this is good. So now you've got this whole folder full of bits. Now what? And yeah, what order? Because you can put them in most any order you want. And if you change the length of one just a frame or two, that can have a big difference on how it appeals, how it feels to the person viewing it. And getting to know that kind of thing is really hard. Knowing when to do L or J cuts for your sound. So that, so that they're looking at one scene. For a lot of people that don't know what this means. Okay. Think of the letter L or J. And on an L cut, you're watching a scene, and the camera or the view shifts to the next scene while you're still hearing a little bit from the last scene talking or whatever, or the music or whatever from the next. And a J cut is the opposite, because it goes like this, right? So that is, while you're watching one thing, the sound of the next scene comes in just a few frames early, and that helps with the transition. Well, when do you do a straight transition? When do you do an L cut? When do you do a J cut? These things, all of these little decisions are just pain. It's pain, and it's much easier for me to sit there and work with color than it is with edit.
It's one of the hardest things, and it's, I write, I will write scripts for clients sometimes, and then I write my own personal projects and things like that. And, the hardest thing is that blank page. And I look at editing sometimes. It's like in Premiere, you open up you create that timeline, and you've got that blank timeline, and all your bins, and it's like, where to start, But I think, what I've learned and what works for me is you just have to dive in. And I've learned this with writing. You can stare at that blank page and think, okay, how do I want to start this? How would Hemingway start this? How would whoever start this? It's like you have to just get out of that all your head and just just start, just write something down.
Yeah, just
Boy rides his bike down the street. It's crap.
right.
Okay, fine. Just keep going. And it's the same thing with editing. Just, if you have a script that you're working from, or a client, or you're just putting something together, just throw stuff on the timeline. What shot do I like? Here, drop this. And you just build this timeline of just clips, and then put some music in there. It's not, maybe the music you're going to use, maybe it's not. Play it back. Well, that looks like crap. But if I put this with this and move this in here and maybe move this around, okay, that looks pretty good. And then, so it's just, you have to just get something there to start molding, and shaping. And I think sometimes people get so caught up in that, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to, those little decisions like, okay, this has to be great. How do I start? What's my big opening shot? I don't just dive in.
Just do something, and then you'll go, and then maybe that perfect opening shot will occur to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, okay, so we need to start wrapping things up here, but I picked up some little tidbits from you, some advice. Take business classes, don't be a jerk, and communicate. But what advice do you have? Do you have any other little tidbits that we want to pass on to people?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I mean, those are the good nuggets right there.
Okay.
Especially the don't be a jerk one. Which if I leave nothing with your viewers, it's don't be a jerk.
Right.
I'm glad that'll be me. I don't know. I think I guess if there's one other thing that kind of ties into the don't be a jerk thing, which would be be an active part of your community. I mean, I'm really big on that. That's one reason I started a user group for Premiere Pro editors here in town. Was because at the time when I started it was still back in the Final Cut 7 heyday, and everybody that I knew. So I used to go to lunch with a group of editors. We do it like once a month. We'd get together, and it was just me and if there was 10 of us at the table, there was me and one other guy that were editing on Premiere at the time. Everybody else was either Final Cut, and there was like 3 or 4 Avid guys. And so I had nothing to talk about with them, tech wise. And so, I started the group purely just to sort of try to find other Premiere editors out there. And that was, I think, like 13 years ago, and we're still doing the group. But getting together with people and getting to know people, even in our industry where there are a lot of introverts and a lot of people that have, issues getting out there and communicating with people, whatever, it's like, you got to force yourself to do it, because you make those connections. Ultimately, those connections are going to help you find work. They're going to help you when you have problems and you don't know how to fix stuff. I mean, I have a network of people when I can't figure something out in Premiere. I don't know how to do this, or I don't have that battery for my camera, or this or that, or whatever. It's like I can call on any number of people in town. It's like, oh yeah, dude, come over, pick it up, or yeah, I'll be right there. I can help you out with that. And that's only because I've gone out there and made those connections and been and are an active part of the production community here in town. And I think when, it's different, I'm sure in LA and New York, where the community is probably so big, it's hard to know people, and you kind of get down into your niche group, but I think, in other smaller markets, I really encourage people, like if you do production and there's a group in town that talks about that and meets once a month, get over there, get to know those people, be a part of that. It really will pay off later on, and you'll be very glad that you did. Step out of your comfort zone, get to know some people. Listen, I can't remember anybody's name, and it's a problem that I'll die with, but I still try to get out there and meet folks, and I'll do my best to sort of remember people's names or ask other people I do know, what's that guy's name again? That's Mark. Oh, thanks. Go over and talk to Mark. So, but you got to do it.
Well, and you go off to something like that, and occasionally it's nice, and you get these things where all of a sudden you're meeting to and you're talking with people from all over the world that do things very differently, and you not only make connections, you learn how different people look at things and how they approach things. And there's so many times when you're going, oh, that's, oh my God, that is so cool. I got it. Oh, and you're grabbing your phone or your pad or whatever, right? Something like that. I got to do that because that is just so cool. But you also make these connections that can take you places you had no idea you were going to go. But again, it's because of making connections with people. It's how you advance. You know, Patrick Palmer, when he saw this guy that went in about 3 months from posting the most questions on the Speed Grade forum to answering the most questions, asked him if he was going to NAB, and if so, could they have dinner? Well, I had no idea who Patrick Palmer was. I had no idea what NAB was. So I Googled, right? Oh, he's the guy that had created Speed Grade with his partner Eridas, or created Eridas with his partner Lynn, and Adobe bought it, and he stayed with it and ran it under Adobe. Now Patrick, by the way, is the head of all of Adobe's video programs. And NAB was this massive video trade show down in Vegas, and I thought it was a hoot, that email. And I went to tell Miriam, and she was in her office where she's sitting right now, and she was just looking at me. And I'm going, obviously this isn't as funny to you as it was to me, but okay. So I came back into my office, and she, a few minutes later, was standing at the door and going, if we were 20 years younger, you'd be going. And I was going, yeah, but we're not. You're going, and turn around to go make airplane connections. Well, that ended up leading to connections with Robbie Carmen and Pat Inhofer and all the rest of the people at Mixing Light, so many other people at Adobe, and all of these other stuff. It's places I would never, ever have dreamed of going, being people I know and work with. And that's all because of just getting out there and going to meet some people. It's very worthwhile.
It's been huge.
Yeah.
Well, it's time. It's been wonderful. We've been talking a long time, though. So it is time to sign off. So thank you so much, Eric, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Oh, yeah. It's fun to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.